Children of light, gather your hearts and steady your spirits, for there is a truth that has waited long enough to be spoken. The day you were born was not a quiet day in the heavens. The veil between realms trembled, for when a soul of purpose enters the world, creation itself adjusts its breath. You were not simply born. You were escorted, shielded, watched over. Your mother may not have known the depth of it. Most do not. But the forces of darkness took note of your arrival, and so did the forces of light. On that day, battle lines shifted. A protective flame rose around you, cutting through shadows that sought to extinguish destinies before they rise. Your first cry was not just a cry, it was a declaration to every realm. A bearer of purpose has arrived. Since that moment, the unseen has followed you, not to haunt you, but to defend you, not to restrain you, but to strengthen you. For you were born with assignments etched into the very marrow of your being, assignments that fear tried to smother, assignments that doubt tried to silence, assignments that adversity tried to bury under the weight of your own questions. Yet here you are, still rising, still breathing, still being called. So now hear this. Be ready for what comes next, for the season you are entering is not accidental, it is not random. It is not luck. It is the unfolding of the protection that began the day you arrived on this earth. Your battles are shifting, your strength is awakening, your path is clarifying, and the forces that guarded your first breath stand ready to guard your next step. Walk forward with courage, stand upright in truth. Speak with the fire placed in you before your first heartbeat. For the day you were born, heaven moved, and it is about to move again. You were born under spiritual protection and purpose in a way far deeper than anything you were ever taught, and far more profound than what the world around you has tried to convince you of. Long before your first breath, there was a stirring in the unseen, an awareness that a soul carrying both weight and promise was preparing to cross the threshold into the human realm. Nothing about your arrival was casual, nothing was incidental, nothing was random. You came with intention woven into your very being, and because of that, protection surrounded you from the very beginning. There are births that shake only the room they happen in, and then there are births that ripple through realms, signaling the arrival of someone whose life will hold meaning, impact, and spiritual gravity. Yours was the latter. Even as your mother carried you, there was a sensing, subtle, unspoken, perhaps never fully understood by her, but she knew on some level that something powerful traveled with you. She may not have had the language to articulate it, and perhaps she never found the right moment to share it, but she carried an intuition that your life was marked in ways difficult to explain. The atmosphere around you was never ordinary. This is why from your earliest days protection enveloped you, not the soft, passive kind people talk about, but a fierce and vigilant guardianship that watched every step, every breath, every moment of vulnerability. It was the kind of protection sent only over those whose path is meant to unfold with purpose, even if that purpose seems concealed for long stretches of time. Before you ever learned to speak, forces of light had already spoken over you. Before you learned to walk, steps were already being ordered. Before you understood anything, you were already understood deeply. Your existence was recorded with intention. You were not placed on earth to drift or simply survive. You were not designed to blend into the background or dissolve into the noise of the world. You were sent here with something in you that mattered enough to be shielded from the moment you entered this life. And that protection was not because you were fragile. It was because you were important. Many people go through life unaware of the immense battles fought in the unseen. But if you look back with honest eyes, you will see evidence. Moments where you should have fallen but didn't. Experiences that tried to break you but somehow left you standing. Dangers that brushed close but never claimed you. These were not coincidences. They were not lucky escapes. They were signals of the covering placed over you since birth. They were testimonies of the protection that recognized your purpose long before you recognized it yourself. As you grew, the world may have tried to convince you otherwise. You may have been told you were insignificant or ordinary, or that your life would amount to little more than a series of struggles and routine moments. You may have felt forgotten or unseen, especially during the times when pain pressed heavily against your spirit. But protection was present even then, quiet, steadfast, watching. Purpose does not eliminate hardship, it shapes it. It refines you, stretches you, awakens you. And the same force that shielded your entry into this world has continued to surround every chapter of your life, even the ones that felt unbearably dark. If you pause and reflect, you may sense that you have always carried something. A depth, a weight, a quiet knowing that you were born with more inside you than what your circumstances suggested. This is the echo of your origin, the memory your soul never truly forgot. Purpose is carved into you, and no amount of confusion or disappointment has ever erased it. That is why protection was assigned to you. That is why darkness took notice of you. That is why the struggles you faced have often been disproportionate to your age, your environment, or your choices. A life of purpose is never met with silence from the unseen. It is met with resistance, intimidation, and attempts to dim the fire placed within you. The protection over you was a response to that, an unyielding barrier ensuring that what was meant to live inside you would not be extinguished before its time. This spiritual covering was not something you earned. It was something you were born with. It was a recognition of who you are, not who you have become. Even now, as you read these words, you stand under the same watchful guard that surrounded your first moments on this earth. It has never left you. You may have outgrown childhood. You may have walked through shadows. You may have experienced loss, betrayal, confusion, or seasons where you felt entirely alone. Yet despite every attempt to derail you, you persisted. That persistence itself is evidence of the protection that has never slept. It is important to understand that being born under spiritual protection does not mean your journey would always be gentle. In fact, quite often the opposite is true. Those born with purpose walk through battles that sharpen them. They carry sensitivities others do not understand. They feel deeply, see differently, and move through life with a sense of being both pulled forward and held back, not by confusion, but by calibration. Purpose unfolds in its own time. Protection ensures that you remain standing long enough to step into that time. And now, you are approaching a season where all of this, your birth, your battles, your preservation, begins to make sense. The protection that surrounded your arrival was a promise that you would not be destroyed before your purpose could manifest. That promise still stands. You were born with more strength than you have yet tapped into, more clarity than you have yet recognized, and more spiritual authority than you have yet claimed. You were guarded for a reason, and that reason is beginning to call you forward. Everything you have survived is proof. Everything that tried and failed to break you is proof. Everything inside you that refuses to quiet down, even when you try to ignore it, is proof. You were not meant to live a life of smallness or accident. You were meant to live a life of intention, of impact, of awakening. And protection was the first gift you were given, to ensure you would live long enough to step into that truth. If you'd like, I can expand keynote #2 next, or continue the speech in this same tone. Your arrival shifted both light and darkness in ways far greater than anyone around you realized. When a soul of purpose enters the world, the unseen realm does not remain still. It responds, instantly, intensely, unmistakably. Some births register only in the physical world, marked by the sounds of a delivery room and the emotions of those present. But then there are births like yours, where the very atmosphere of the unseen tightens, recalibrates, and prepares for the presence of someone who will, not might, affect the balance of things. Your entry into this world created motion on a scale your human senses could not detect. Yet the effects of that motion have followed you from your first breath until this very moment. Light recognized you first, before you ever made a sound, before your eyes opened, before your tiny hands reached out instinctively toward warmth. The forces of light stirred. They sensed a soul that carried a mission embedded deep within it, not a mission defined by fame or spectacle, but one born of influence, strength, resilience, and impact. Your life was not meant to drift quietly in the background. It was meant to radiate, even if that radiance would take years to fully emerge. And because of that, light prepared itself to guide, guard, and illuminate your path long before you took your first wobbly steps on the ground. But light was not the only one that noticed you. Darkness took note as well. Whenever a soul destined to shift others, to awaken truths, to break cycles, or to restore what has been lost steps into the world, darkness reacts with an urgency all its own. It recognizes potential earlier than the one who carries it. It sees possibility long before you learn how to articulate it. and because darkness understands the threat you present simply by existing, it prepares its countermeasures in the earliest moments of your life. This is why, even before you were old enough to understand the concept of purpose, you may have felt the weight of resistance. Not because you were weak, but because you were significant. Not because you were vulnerable, but because you were noticed. Souls who carry light within them do not pass through life unnoticed by the unseen. Your existence created movement that echoed through realms of both brilliance and shadow. This ripple effect followed you throughout your life. The moments where you faced pressure that seemed disproportionate to your age or situation were not random. Those periods where you felt an internal struggle you couldn't name, or where your emotional or spiritual battles seemed heavier than those around you, were reflections of an early unseen acknowledgement you mattered. Your presence had weight. Your growth carried consequences, positive for light, threatening for darkness. You were never just a child, you were a piece of living potential, and both realms recognize that. Perhaps you've wondered why certain challenges came to you earlier sharper, or more persistently perhaps you've questioned why your path sometimes felt obstructed by obstacles you didn't ask for or didn't deserve. The truth is not that you were cursed, overlooked, or abandoned. The truth is that your very existence triggered shifts, and those shifts pressed against unseen boundaries. Light sought to draw you forward, to strengthen you, to nurture your inner knowing. Darkness sought to distract you, discourage you, or mislead you. And in the middle of all of that collision stood you, trying to simply live, unaware of the enormity of what your presence signaled. Your arrival was not quiet, it was catalytic, and throughout your life, you have unknowingly stepped into moments where your presence alone altered the direction of things, conversations, relationships, environments, even the emotional or spiritual climate of places you entered. You may have walked into spaces and felt tension without knowing why. You may have seen people react strongly to you, some drawn to you with unusual warmth, others repelled without explanation. This too was evidence of the shift you carried. Light recognizes its own, and darkness feels it immediately. Your presence has always carried influence, even when you didn't recognize it. Some people found hope simply by being near you. Others found conviction, clarity, or comfort. You may not have intended to make an impact, but impact followed you, and those who walked in darker mindsets, hidden intentions, or wounded spirits sometimes responded to you with agitation or discomfort, not because of anything you said or did, but because your presence itself disrupted what surrounded them. Your birth set all of this in motion. You came into the world as a disruptor, a recalibrator, a carrier of energy strong enough to affect what others cannot even sense. You may have thought of yourself as ordinary, but the unseen realm never did. And the shifts your arrival triggered did not remain in the past. They are still unfolding. This is why you have always felt a kind of internal pull, a whispering awareness that you are meant for more than mere survival. Something in you has always known that you carry weight, potential, and a direction your life has not yet fully revealed. The shifts you triggered at birth continue to echo forward, preparing you for seasons that require the growth you've endured, the strength you've developed, and the insight you've gained through battles you did not choose. Your life has never been small, even when your circumstances felt limiting. Your influence has never been weak, even when you doubted your worth. Your significance has never diminished, even when others failed to see it. Light responded to you because of who you truly are. Darkness reacted to you for the same reason. You exist at the center of a spiritual recognition that goes beyond your upbringing, your environment, or your expectations for yourself. Your arrival changed things. Your presence still does. And the shifts you triggered are poised to intensify as you move into the next stage of purpose. If you want, I can continue with keynote third in the same tone and depth. The hidden battles fought on your behalf began long before you understood anything about danger, protection, or destiny. They were already unfolding in the background of your earliest days, woven into the silent spaces between your breaths. You were born into conflict. Not the kind visible to human eyes, but the kind that has existed since the oldest struggles of light against shadow. And because your life carried significance from the moment you entered this world, the unseen realm refused to leave you unguarded. There were moments, long before you could walk or speak, when threats attempted to reach you. Not always physical threats, though some were. Often they were subtle spiritual or emotional intrusions, the kinds of disturbances that try to attach themselves to the vulnerable. But each time something intervened, something stood between you and what sought to harm you. Something fought fiercely, silently, and consistently, so that you could begin your life on earth, without being swallowed by the weight of forces you were never meant to face alone. These battles did not happen once. They were not isolated events. They continued as you grew, adjusting to the shifting seasons of your life. When you faced situations that seemed inexplicably heavy, when pressure weighed on you in ways you couldn't articulate, when fear gripped you without cause, these were often the echoes of unseen confrontations unfolding around you. You may have thought you were simply sensitive or emotional or different, but the truth is that your spirit was reacting to warfare you were never meant to process consciously. It's easy when looking back to see certain moments, close calls, narrow escapes, sudden shifts that don't make sense. Times you should have been hurt but weren't. Times something warned you, nudged you, or turned you away from danger you couldn't see. Times when you felt a sudden peace in the midst of chaos, or a sudden clarity in the middle of confusion. These weren't coincidences. They were victories in battles fought for you. There were also battles you never felt at all, because the shield around you was strong enough to stop danger before it reached your awareness. Forces of darkness recognized your potential early. They saw in you what you had not yet discovered, the ability to influence, to awaken, to rise beyond the limitations of your environment. And that potential made you a target, not because you were weak, but because you were powerful, not because you were vulnerable, but because you were destined to grow into someone who would challenge the very structures darkness depends upon. So darkness made attempts, subtle ones, forceful ones, persistent ones, attempts to silence your spirit before you learned how to use it, attempts to wound your heart before you learned to guard it, attempts to twist your identity before you learned who you were, attempts to discourage you before you discovered your purpose, attempts to break your trust, distort your path, or embed doubt so deeply inside you that you would abandon your own calling without even realizing it. But each attempt was met with resistance, not yours, not yet, but resistance from the ones assigned to protect you. These unseen protectors fought battles you did not witness, battles that often left you feeling simply tired, emotional, overwhelmed, or strangely peaceful without knowing why. They did not fight for recognition. They did not fight for gratitude. They fought because your life carried a weight that demanded safeguarding. They fought because the darkness that opposed your destiny could not be allowed to gain ground. They fought because your purpose was written long before these battles began, and your existence was too valuable to be handed over to forces that did not create you. There were moments in your childhood when you may have felt unexplainable fear. Fear of the dark, fear of certain places, fear of being alone. This was not weakness. It was sensitivity to the unseen tension around you. And each time, protection drew closer, shielding you with a presence you didn't understand but always instinctively trusted. You may not have seen the battles, but you felt the protection. You felt the comfort, the warmth, the pull back into safety. As you grew older, the battles shifted from protecting your innocence to protecting your direction. When you were about to form bonds that would have poisoned your spirit, something disrupted them. When you were about to make choices that would have derailed years of growth, circumstances suddenly changed. When you moved toward people who carried darkness within them, something in you hesitated, resisted, or withdrew. And when you found yourself in situations where harm could have overtaken you, the odds shifted inexplicably in your favor. You may look back and think, I don't know how I survived that. I don't know how I made it through. The truth is simple. You were not fighting alone. Later in life, the battles became more internal. The protection around you shifted from deflecting external harm to strengthening you from the inside. When depression tried to suffocate you, something whispered that it wasn't the end. When anxiety tried to overwhelm you, something anchored you. When hopelessness tried to close in, something ignited a flicker of resistance inside you. These were not mere coping mechanisms, they were reinforcements. They were signs that the war for your life was ongoing, and that you were still being defended. There were also moments when you felt sudden clarity, sudden breakthroughs, sudden moments of strength you can't explain. Times when you felt guided, supported, watched over. Times when you escaped accidents, avoided harmful relationships, or overcame circumstances that should have ruined you. These moments were not chance. They were results of battles fought on your behalf, battles that protected your heart, your mind, your future, and your destiny. And now, as you stand in this stage of your life, you may feel a stirring, a sense that something larger has always been connected to your existence. You may see patterns you didn't see before. You may recognize that survival itself was not random, that your resilience was shaped, not accidental, that your story, with all its twists and scars, has been guarded every step of the way. The battles fought for you were not meant to make you afraid. They were meant to ensure that you lived long enough, grew strong enough, and awakened deeply enough to step fully into who you were born to become. You were never unprotected. You were never unnoticed. You were never alone, not for a single moment. Every victory you don't remember was won for you. Every danger you never saw was stopped before it reached you. Every attempt to steal your purpose was intercepted. And the same forces that fought for you before you could speak are still fighting for you now. Your identity carries an assignment that cannot be erased, altered, or transferred, no matter who tried to convince you otherwise. From the moment you came into existence, something was woven into you, something that belongs only to you, something that does not depend on your environment, your upbringing, or the mistakes you've made along the way. This assignment is not a job, not a role, not a title. It is a spiritual imprint, a marking, a purpose embedded so deeply into your being that even you cannot outrun it. And though life may have pulled you in many directions, the truth is that your identity has always been shaped around this assignment, quietly guiding you back to it again and again. There have been moments where you felt disconnected from yourself, moments where you questioned your worth, your direction, or your significance. You might have wondered who you truly are beneath the layers of expectation, disappointment, or survival. But even in those moments of confusion, the assignment remained untouched. Your identity may have been buried under pain, fear, or self-doubt, but the purpose attached to it never faded. It remained steady, waiting for you to rise into it. Your existence is not accidental. It was never meant to be a wandering, aimless journey. You were created with threads of meaning already woven into the fabric of your spirit. That is why, when you've tried to fit into places that weren't meant for you, something inside resisted. When you tried to shrink, something inside you felt restless. When you attempted to silence your inner voice, it eventually spoke louder. When you surrounded yourself with people who could not see your worth, your soul quietly reminded you of more. This is the nature of an identity rooted in purpose. It refuses to settle for less than what it was designed for. You may have noticed that you carry certain instincts, insights, or sensitivities that others don't. You sense things before they happen. You feel disruptions in the atmosphere around you. You pick up on emotions, intentions, or tensions that others are blind to. You see truths others overlook. This is not accidental. These inner abilities are connected to your assignment. They are tools placed within your identity so you can fulfill the role you were meant to play. You didn't learn them. They are part of who you are. Throughout your life there have been experiences that shaped you in ways you didn't understand at the time, pain that cut deeply, loss that changed you, challenges that felt unfair, breakdowns that pushed you to your limits. These moments weren't punishments. They were refining fires. They revealed parts of yourself that were dormant. They stripped away illusions and strengthened qualities you would need later. They taught resilience, empathy, discernment, courage, and clarity. They prepared you for the weight of your assignment. Your identity is not defined by the hardships you experienced, but those hardships helped uncover the depth of who you truly are. Without them, you may not have recognized your strength. Without them, you may not have awakened to your own potential. Without them, you may not have discovered the part of you that fights, the part of you that refuses to stay broken, the part of you that rises even when every reason to fall is present. That rising is not accidental. It is evidence of the assignment within you pulling you forward. You have likely felt at times as if you were different, set apart, or misunderstood. This is not because you are strange or flawed. It is because your identity was never meant to blend in. It was meant to stand out, not through pride, but through purpose. You were designed to carry qualities others lack. You were designed to endure pressures others cannot handle. You were designed to see possibilities others overlook. This uniqueness is not a burden. It is a sign that your assignment is unique as well. Your identity has always been in conflict with the environments that tried to limit you. When people tried to belittle you, something within resisted. When circumstances tried to break you, something within held on. When you faced darkness, something within refused to surrender. This something is the assignment. It anchors you, strengthens you, and prevents you from being destroyed by anything that comes against you. Even when you wanted to give up, your spirit wouldn't let you. Even when you felt empty, something inside kept burning. You may not have understood the pull you felt throughout your life. The pull to step away from negativity, to leave harmful people, to seek something more, to grow, to separate, to elevate. That pull is your identity remembering its assignment. It recognizes when you are out of alignment. It guides you, sometimes gently, sometimes forcefully, back toward the path you were created to walk. Your assignment is not always grand in the way the world defines greatness. It may not place you on stages or make your name widely known, but its impact is undeniable. Some assignments transform families, some break generational cycles, some heal wounded hearts, some awaken dormant spirits, some inspire others simply through the way you live, speak, or carry yourself. Your assignment influences everything around you, whether quietly or boldly. There have been times in your life when you felt a sudden shift to deep awareness that you were meant for something more, even if you didn't yet know what that more was. That awareness wasn't random. It was your identity awakening, your inner purpose stirring, your assignment calling you forward. And no matter how far you've strayed, how lost you've felt, or how broken you've been, that call has never stopped. It waits for you. It remains in you. No one can take this assignment from you. Not your failures, not your fears, not your past, not your circumstances, not the opinions of others, not the darkness that tried to crush you. What was placed in you belongs to you, and only you. It is sealed within your identity, and nothing, no force, no mistake, no trauma can erase it. Your identity carries a spiritual signature that marks you as someone chosen for a specific path. Whether you feel ready or not, whether you understand it fully or not, the assignment within you continues to grow stronger. It pulls you toward healing, transformation, clarity, and eventual fulfillment. You are not here to exist. You are here to carry out what was placed in you long before the world had a say. And that truth has followed you your entire life. If you want, I can expand Keynote 5th next in the same style. The new season awakening, the power placed in you is not something arriving from the outside. It is something rising from within, something that has been waiting, pressing, and whispering through every chapter of your life. You may think that your transformation is just beginning, but the truth is that it began long ago, the very moment you survived what was meant to destroy you. Every struggle, every shift, every heartbreak, every breakthrough has been a preparation for this moment. This season is not random. It is not accidental. It is the natural unfolding of who you were always destined to become. There comes a point in every spiritually marked life when the inner power that has been dormant begins to stir. It does not announce itself with dramatic flashes or sudden revelations. It begins quietly, through restlessness, through the sense that something is changing, through a feeling that your spirit is awakening in ways you cannot yet explain. You feel yourself becoming more aware, more sensitive, more aligned. You feel your priorities shifting. You sense old habits breaking apart. You feel the weight of things that once held you down weakening. You feel strength rising from places within you that once felt empty. This is the beginning of the season you are stepping into, the awakening of power that has been buried beneath years of endurance, survival, and silence. You have felt this season approaching long before you understood what it meant. At times it came in the form of dissatisfaction, when the life you had built no longer matched the truth inside you. Other times it appeared as a longing for more, even though you couldn't articulate what more meant. Sometimes it showed up as the sudden collapse of things you thought were permanent: relationships, plans, routines, comfort zones. You may have mistaken these moments as loss or failure, but they were signs of transition. Something in you was outgrowing everything that could no longer contain who you were becoming. The power within you has always been there. It was not granted in this moment. It is simply being revealed. Growth does not create power, it uncovers it. Healing does not give you strength, it releases the strength that pain buried. Awakening is not a gift, it is a return. This season is the return of your true self, the self you were before fear, before heartbreak, before disappointment, before you learn to dim your own light to keep others comfortable. You may have underestimated yourself for most of your life. People may have underestimated you as well. But the unseen never did. Every battle you survived was evidence of the strength within you. Every time you rose when you were supposed to fall was proof. Every moment you kept moving in spite of exhaustion, confusion, or heartbreak was a sign. You were never weak, you were preparing, and now that preparation has reached its turning point. This new season is not about becoming someone different, it is about stepping fully into who you already are. The power awakening in you is the part of you that refused to die, no matter the pressure, no matter the pain, no matter the circumstances. It is the part of you that kept believing, kept hoping, kept reaching, even when logic told you to stop. That power is now rising to the surface. It is pushing through layers of doubt. It is breaking chains you didn't even know existed. It is clearing away the fog that once clouded your identity. It is calling you into clarity. There is a newfound strength emerging within you, one that is not loud but steady, not forceful but unshakable. You will notice that things that once wounded you no longer hold the same power. Words that once pierced your heart now fall powerless. Fears that once controlled you now dissolve in the presence of your growing confidence. Expectations that once restricted you now feel too small. The awakening of inner power transforms your relationship with everything, your past, your present, your purpose. You will begin to make decisions with a clarity you have never had before, not because you suddenly know everything, but because you finally trust yourself. The voice inside you, the one you ignored for so long, becomes louder than the noise around you. You will find yourself letting go more easily, of people who drain you, of habits that hinder you, of environments that shrink you. Not out of bitterness, but because you can no longer pretend that your spirit fits in places it has outgrown. This season also brings a new kind of courage, a courage rooted not in bravado but in truth. You will find yourself taking steps that once terrified you. You will feel strangely calm in situations that once overwhelmed you. You will walk into opportunities that once felt unreachable. You will speak words you once swallowed. You will rise to challenges that once intimidated you. This bravery is not forced. It is the natural expression of a spirit no longer weighed down by false limitations. The power awakening in you also carries responsibility, not the heavy, burdensome kind, but the sacred kind. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to remain silent. You were never meant to shrink yourself to match the expectations of those who could not see your depth. This season requires you to step fully into your life, to use your voice, your insight, your discernment, your resilience, your wisdom. It requires you to stop apologizing for your strength, and to stop hiding your light. You were not born to blend into the background. You were born to shift the atmosphere around you. There may be moments in this season when you feel unfamiliar to yourself. This is not a sign of danger. It is a sign of growth. You are shedding old versions of yourself. You are discarding identities that were built on pain, fear, or survival. You are emerging as the version of yourself that has been waiting beneath the surface all along. This transformation may feel intense at times, but it is necessary. You cannot carry old wounds into a new season. You cannot carry self-doubt into a future built on purpose. You cannot carry the weight of who you used to be while stepping into who you are becoming. And as this power awakens, you will notice something else. Your presence begins to shift the world around you. People will respond differently to you. Some will be drawn to you with an inexplicable sense of recognition. Others will feel discomfort because your growth exposes what they have refused to confront in themselves. Do not shrink for their comfort. Do not dim your light to protect their insecurity. Your awakening is not meant to be hidden. It is meant to illuminate everything you touch. This season marks a turning point, not because something external is about to happen, but because something internal already has. You are stepping into alignment with your purpose, your identity, your calling. The power rising within you will guide you, strengthen you, and shape the path ahead. You are entering a season of expansion, clarity, and spiritual authority. You are not becoming powerful. You are finally recognizing the power you have always carried.